What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Oscar's Cozy Corner. Spooky season is upon us. Halloween is just around the corner, and I thought that it was about high time that I did some decorating in my plaza for my favorite time of year. The nice thing about Dreamlight Valley is they do lean into decor and themed pieces for a lot of different holidays. We have plenty to work with for Christmas, Halloween, Easter, and lots of other small holidays as well. But with the Halloween Dream Castle skin that we got a few weeks ago for the nice big castle in the center of the map, I thought that it would be fun to go through an existing build, update it, bring a little bit of seasonality to it to make it really fit in with that new castle skin that we've got that you can see from the plaza. With all that being said, let's just get straight into it. And of course, I will give you a little tour at the end. All right, so this is my plaza as is right now. I did only recently do this, and I did only recently overhaul this whole space. So I will put a link to that video just up here if you would like to watch it. It is a few hours long if you want to spend another couple of hours with me. But today we're just going to make some small changes that will bring this up to Halloween standards. We've got that castle in the background that is really nicely Halloween themed. I do think that we will see a few more of these skins going forward in the premium shop. I think it probably would have sold very well. So I just want to match as best as we can down here to this castle skin, not using lots of straw or anything like that, but I just think bringing a few pumpkins in, maybe some floating candles now that we can use them outside, will really help sell the idea. So the first part that I really want to focus on is this kind of like central square, this small little square that I made just in front of the plaza well. I'm going to get rid of these park entries for now. And because these balloons feel a little bit more jovial than they do spooky, I'm also going to get rid of those. I think I'm going to get rid of the partners statue. That feels criminal as kind of like a parks fan, as it should be the centerpiece, but needs must. So I'm going to start with kind of a blank slate there. We did only remove like 4 items, but I think it helps. Now I favorited a few different Halloween options. This park's gate with the Halloween theming and the giant goofy head on it. Its footprint is a little bit bigger, which is a shame. So I'm going to have to get rid of these fences as well. Now this is a little bit more destruction than I was planning on doing, so I will have to try and remember what I did, but I'm going to align that up if I can right in the center. So we've got that nice themed Halloween parks entry looking directly up to the castle. I think that works really, really nicely. And then I'm also going to maybe fill the sides in, possibly with the webbed snared trees, although you have to remove the path to place those down, which is a little bit of a pain. So I think maybe the batty tree from the wishful thinking star path does match in terms of like colors, so I think we can use that on either side. That'll be a nice little addition. And then I do think we need to fill in just this little space here with some more iron fencing, because we don't want anyone falling into the water. Well, I mean, it's Halloween after all, so maybe we could have a horror show with somebody drowning, or maybe not. Let's not have that. Okay, that works. And I think that provides kind of like a nice little symmetrical view up towards the castle. Just like that. So I'm happy with how those look, but now we do have to think about what we're going to put in this middle part. So I know that I wasn't going to try and make too many changes or structural changes, but I guess this central section is pretty small. I will leave the rest as is as much as possible. But I'm kind of thinking possibly the fortune teller's tent, because let me show you the other options that we do have. We have things like the haunted pipe organ, but it doesn't feel quite right. Maleficent's throne doesn't feel quite right there either. I think the mausoleum could be a possibility, but again, it's quite small for that section that we've actually made. The only thing that really could work is the skeletal mobile. And we could just put a fence all the way around that. That might be an option. But I do want to check out this pumpkin topiary first. Now, I do love that. And I think this, if we don't like the fortune teller's tent, I think this might be what we go for, because it is pretty on theme. But I do want to see what that fortune teller's tent looks like. It is a recent addition. I have not used it in any builds yet. It's just a little bit large, isn't it? It's just a little bit big, unfortunately. I did not anticipate the footprint being so big, even though it's not huge, but for this specific space, I do think it's a little too big. But what we could do is possibly put it down here and replace that. So we will check that, keep it in the back of our mind, and go back to this little section. I mean, the other thing we could do is the witchy potion stand, but it blocks a lot of that park's entry, which I don't love. So I think the best option will probably be this pumpkin Mickey topiary, and then we will just come up with something for the space around it. But I think that works for now, at the very least. So I'm just going to turn my attention to these two little seating areas just here. I'm going to get rid of those because they feel a little bit more spring or summer-like. And I was hoping to use, again, the web snare tree, but because it takes up such a gigantic footprint, it's not going to be on the cards for us. However, in trees, I believe that there is a dead tree somewhere. Now, I know the sinister tree is pretty cool, but it's very big. I'm looking for not this one, but this bare-limbed tree. So this bare-limbed tree, I think, is pretty close in color to the batty tree. And we've actually got two colors. So there's one that's even closer in color. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pop those in the corners just for now. And then I'm going to move this little bit of hedge back because apparently I missed that in my main build. And then I can slot that right in that corner space, which is nice. I do want to replace these benches, but the problem that I have with what I want to replace it with is that the Halloween bench, which I think is a really fun addition, it's gigantic. Like, compared to the regular benches, it is absolutely massive. So I don't know if that is going to work, but we might be able to use the late riser bench instead. Because the other thing that I was thinking was possibly just the regular wrought iron benches. Now, I don't think we have wrought iron benches. I've just made that up. We've got the wrought iron chairs, but not the benches. And we don't have these in black, which is a shame. But I do need to add in a little bit of fencing just on this side again for the water. So I'm just going to fill in that gap there. And I'm sure there will be one on the other side, which of course there is. So at least those are all filled in. And I'm probably going to go back and forth on what to do with this. But I actually think the Halloween bench fits the bill best. The other thing I do think I'm going to do is replace the recycler with the beige themed one. So the park themed recycling bins. And I think I'm just going to pop them in each side. Just like that. So at least they're still there and we still get that kind of like parks element to it. They're just a little bit more themed. I suppose they could go on the sides just there. No. Turning my attention back to where I was meant to be, to these little seating areas, I'm just going to pop a little wrought iron fence in and just run it up the edge to about there. Just so these sections feel a little bit more enclosed now. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm just going to bring it up in line with that wrought iron archway. And then everything kind of feels like it leads towards that dream castle, which is pretty much what I'm going for. Now, I would like to fit something else thematic in this little kind of like seating area just at the back. So I don't know whether to use possibly maybe a pumpkin scarecrow just behind the seat, just to give it a little bit of light in the area as well. Maybe we could even pop him in the corner. And I wonder if we could fit the floating candles above the seat, which looks pretty cute. Actually, I think I might move them all the way across and see if I can fit double in. Which we can. Great. Look at that. I love that already. Such a small little change, but it really, really works. And then I've also got the pumpkin stack. If I can fit this in, it would be great. If I can't, that's okay. And of course I can't. I wonder if we turn this, or maybe we bring him across one and I might be able to fit one in then. can't really see it, so that was kind of that was kind of a waste of time. I thought they were a little bit taller than they were, so I'm just gonna bring the scarecrow back over, kind of in line with the corner of the bench, and I might even bring that tree out of the corner then. Excellent. And I'm just gonna do exactly the same thing on the other side. So I think I'm kind of like 1 away here and then 2 away there. We're just going to duplicate, nice and easy. Fit that in. Duplicate that scarecrow. And then give us those nice little floating candles, which are so much better now that they can go outside. Perfect. I think that pretty much is identical. Awesome. The seating area works. If I think of something else to put in that section while we're decorating, we definitely will, but let's move on. Going through those Halloween items again, I did come across the Headless Horseman statue, which we got, I think, this week in the premium shop. So I think that this could work pretty well. Because it's got such a nice plinth on it on either side, kind of by these Remy's entrances, so I could just have it mirrored opposite each other. Maybe something like that works. And then we just bring a little bit more space out. I think maybe the recyclers could possibly go walkabouts just for the time being. So I'm going to hide those and maybe give that whole section to the Headless Horseman statues, because then it centers quite nicely with that fence as well. And it makes it feel intentional, like they've been placed there for the season by the park, which is what I like. Now, what I have just realized with this is that because this park's gate has such gigantic mushrooms on it, they are not mushrooms, they are pumpkins, because they have such gigantic pumpkins on, I can't actually walk past it. So there's going to be no way for me to go out to the side because it does actually have a gate in the middle as well. So I'm going to have to adjust this little central section. Now, I think maybe I just bring it all down slightly so I can at least have an extra little bit of path going out there. If I just get rid of those and then I bring this down and then I get rid of those and I bring this down and we change it all to diagonal, I think that gives me enough breathing room to run past. So that makes it a little bit more square as well, I suppose, which makes life a little bit easier. But I'm still going back and forth on whether to use the skeletal mobile, because we could have it placed like diagonally. Something kind of like that. I think that still looks pretty fun. But then the other part of me is still kind of like, I want this pumpkin Mickey topiary. I just wish that it was twice the size that it is. I think it needs to be that. I can use the skeletal mobile somewhere else. So I'm just going to place these lanterns back in their rightful place. And then we can also add just a little bit of iron fencing to finish off this sort of square area. And I do think that's going to be enough space for me to run down the side, so that shouldn't end up being an issue. And I do like to keep the path in because I think those are quite cute, like photo opportunities if this was a real space. So you could go in and kind of like take your photo with the topiary. But I did actually do this plaza before we got the diagonal fences. So let's just see how it looks if I replace that with a diagonal version. I guess then I don't really have anywhere to put the actual light. So I think I'm going to probably stick with what I had. Unless I could just place this. No, I can't even place a single one down. It doesn't look too good. Because you can actually get a single one if you swap to diagonal, start dragging it, and then swap back. That doesn't look ideal, so I'm just going to get rid of that as well. What we could possibly do is use the late riser benches, because they are technically coffins, so they actually match the park's entry, because there is a tombstone here that says RIP. So even though these wouldn't be used kind of like as benches by villagers because they won't be able to get in there, I do think having the coffins in there is quite cute. And then I think we could maybe pop in some foliage if there is enough room. I don't think there will be. I don't know what color would work. Oh, maybe the orange. Oh, the orange does work. I really like that orange, actually. I think there's a lighter orange, but that looks more dead. Whereas this deeper orange just fits the colors and the aesthetic a little more. So I'm just going to duplicate that in each corner. And then that ties it all together, which I'm very happy with. And I think in the spaces, if we get a chance, I might pop down, depending on the size, some pumpkins kind of like at the corner of each of these lampposts. Now we can make them different depending on which side we're on. I don't think there's any rotation on that. I can get it any closer. Maybe if we pop that there, it wants to get rid of the bush. So I'm not sure if I can go back one with the bush. I can't. That's okay. We persevere. We can do something like that just on the edges of each one. So I've got a couple of different jack-o'-lanterns, of course. We've got the family of jack-o'-lanterns as well. Maybe that one needs to be where that is, actually, because it's got the smaller one on the inside. And then I can place that down. And then actually, I think at the back, I'm going to leave it because I needed that space to walk, right? So I really do need to be able to get down the sides of that. But I think that those lanterns look pretty cute. And I like that they're not like fully doubled up or duplicated. So I'm good. What I have spotted is this side bit, this little side return down here. Now, we did fill this space with the previous park's entries, but it's not filled with this new one. So I think I'm going to place down some foliage down here just to fill in those gaps. I don't think we're going to be able to get a lot down here, but maybe a couple of just kind of like orange bushes would work. They don't look great, to be honest. I can't lie. So maybe we can find something else, perhaps in the foliage menu. If we go back over to trees, possibly. We do have a lot of orange trees from Storybook Vale, so we could try and fit those in to give us a little bit more. Ugh, that's far too big. But it needs to be more shrub size. So we're probably gonna have to stick with like the bushes and the shrubs. But I think that could work because it has that really bright orange tone to it. So I'm just gonna duplicate that on this side. Pop that in just there, and then we can grab the little one as well and just duplicate that and drop that right into place and bring it forward just one tile, make it line up with the other one, and I think we should be good on that front. And I'm thinking possibly if we do have any space available without the footprints getting too crazy, we could maybe put something in to kind of block that green coming through, because there is a green from the biome floor peeking its little head out. It's just a matter of picking the right pumpkin to do so. Maybe the Mickey Mouse one because it has the biggest ears. Yeah, we could do that. That will work. I'll do what we're after, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Actually, we don't need to because it's already covered by that one on the other side. So I'm going to bring that all the way forward, and then actually I'm going to place one in here. And then I guess I'll just fill that space in with pumpkins. Kind of like that. Yeah, I just want as many pumpkins as I can get it because I feel like they're seasonal. So the more the merrier. Excellent. Pumpkin overload, apparently. And looking at this back return from the actual plaza itself, there is a little bit of a gap down here. So I'm thinking of possibly filling this in with the iron fence with the brick wall. So I think if I bring it out there, it just gives like enough texture to that area for you to ignore it and not see through it. So let's do that on both sides. And I feel like that makes a big difference. You can select this plaza section now, which selects the bridge as well. So I am expecting this to be replaceable at some point. Shame we didn't get one for Halloween, but maybe we will get one for Christmas. But coming back to this central section, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking there's a lot of brickwork on the floor. So I'm thinking we need to break this up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take away some of the path around this headless horseman statue. And we're going to just try and give a little bit more visual interest to the ground here. So I'm going to make it diagonal again, the same as everything else. But I think that just adds a nice little bit of interest to this area. I do want to make these square. I'm going to try and square off that one if I can grab it. I just think that adds a little bit of interest, some of the green coming through from the biome floor. So we can do exactly the same thing over here. We're just gonna delete the headless horseman apparently, and then I'm gonna change this, and I'm gonna change this, and then we can drop him right back in where he belongs, just like that. And then my trusty go-to is, if in doubt, grab this metal grate, because it feels kind of like city core-esque or town core-esque, and just place it on the floor. Breaks it up a little bit. Looks like it's meant to be there because it's some sort of utility. So it works, it fits, and it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and call this central section of the plaza done. I think it fits the bill. I think it looks good, and I don't want to spend too much more time on it. So we're going to do either other side now. Either other side. We're going to do each side. And these are going to be reflected, so whatever I do on one side, I'm just going to go ahead and do on the other, which makes my life a little bit easier. But if we actually go over to the left, I'm going to do what I think I said at the start, which was remove that specific topiary, get rid of this fence, and then I'm going to try and pop in the fortune teller tent, because that does kind of feel Halloween-y. Plus, it matches the purple ever so slightly of these benches, and I think it will have a nice color scheme, and it kind of matches the actual castle itself. So I know that this is big. We might need to get rid of something just over here. We might need to get rid of a couple of trees, actually. Now, this is a kind of a bigger overhaul than I was thinking of doing. I was only going to swap out a few little elements, so it is what it is. You roll with the punches, you work out, and you see what looks best. And we are still not able to fit it in. I'm not sure what it is in particular, just that one bush down there. That's okay. We can live with that, because I can just replace it just like that. And then I can also have them coming back into the same pattern, just like that. Just with the little gap in between, which is absolutely fine. I think the fortune teller tent looks good. I think it fits the bill. I think it would be something that you would see seasonal in a theme park, just like that. And then obviously we can do the same thing on the other side. It doesn't take up too much space. We've still got trees in that section. So I think just placing that down by itself adds a nice little touch to the area. It fits with the plaza. So I'm happy with how that looks. I also think could look pretty cool with this fortune teller's tent is Madame Leota's table, because it fits with that fortune telling aesthetic. It's just a matter of where we place it. I think it needs to be next to the tent. I'm not sure if I want to get rid of the concessions cart to kind of like put it in that space, because it gets a little bit swallowed up by there. So I'm going to undo that, and we're going to keep the concessions cart. But I do think this is kind of the perfect place for it. I just don't know how far back I can get it to go. It looks pretty cool from all angles, so I'm gonna leave that in. I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna leave that in. Just, well, maybe I put it kind of like that. No, we'll put it in there. That looks really good. I'm happy with that. They match, so that's a win. Moving on, I think something that we can do really quickly and easily is get rid of those trees in this central section. Get rid of those balloons as well, because again, they feel a little bit too happy. And we can just pop in some of those dead trees. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom here, and we've got the bare-limbed trees. I'm going to use these again. There's 2 different variations, I believe, instead of 3 for these. Because I don't think, if I look... Actually, that one will fit, so that's good. That will fit. I was looking at the big sinister tree, but I think the footprint of that one is far too large. The mossy roots are not going to fit either, even though I believe there's a smaller version. Perhaps that could fit. Let's take those trees out of there a sec, and let's see if that mossy root arch will squeeze in. I don't think it will. No, it's 1 or 2 tiles. Too big either side, which is a shame, but we'll go with these dead old trees for now. And then I'll also pop in that Forgotten Lands one. And I think I'm going to get rid of the darker one, and I'm going to place maybe that and possibly one of the orange ones just to bring it back into the same color scheme. We got the small tree, but it's a little bit too small, but the footprint works, so I will place that down. I think maybe... Oh, excellent. That fits too. Even though that's absolutely gigantic. The forked one could work, though, because that's got a little bit of height to it without being too in your face. So we could do something like that. I just wish the color of this one was ever so slightly different, because I really like this like rich brown bark that we get from these ones. So we could put that in the middle, move that a little bit closer, and then bring that over slightly. I think that could look pretty nice. And then I wonder if we just drop in some of the smaller versions, perhaps something like that. And rotate that a little bit, and then maybe we could fit in some dead bushes. I don't think there's anything foliage-wise that would really match other than some pumpkins, which we may be able to fit in if we tweak our placement a little bit. So if I move that over just like that, we may be able to get in a pumpkin stack or 2. Very cute. And then could we fit a little scarecrow in here? Would that work? If we move that one out, we could pop one in possibly right in the middle, kind of facing the plaza in some capacity. So he's getting swallowed up by this tree. And you need to go back 1, and then you need to go back 1, and then we'll be able to fit him right in the center. Great. And then maybe we could just pop a little pumpkin down near him, if space permits. And then maybe one or 2 others in that space, but I don't think we're going to be able to fit them. So I will revisit that in a little bit. But I think that looks good for now. I really do love these parks benches and these recyclers, so I'm going to leave those in for now. My logic is, if this was a real park, maybe they would focus their energy on this section and not remove too much from the main thoroughfares. So I think that this is enough Halloween in this area for me to leave these benches, because they still match. What I am thinking of doing is placing a bunch of floating candles, if they will allow me to, right over the whole river. I say river, it's barely a stream, but I was thinking maybe I could place them all the way down on both sides, and that would just give like a really nice vibrant look, or a vibrant glow at night. I do need to move that one just back a little bit to make sure it fits, but I think looking down the street and seeing all those floating candles would be really cute. So we're just going to place them down this side as well, just as many as we can get, and then I'm going to do the same just on the edge as well. Now, I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles out. So I'm going to move everything across by 2. Just so the whole thing is centered. Because if I'm doing symmetry, I may as well make everything centered as well. And then I think that's just about it. For those floating candles on this side, I think that looks cool. And I think it's going to look good at night. But looking around and then looking back into my favorite section, there's not a massive amount that I do want to change, but I am thinking maybe we could swap out this concessions cart for this little like witchy potion hut, because it does kind of feel like if this was some sort of theme park, then Disney would definitely take their chance to sell special drinks or special food and snacks. So I think maybe if we place one of those down in place of the concessions cart on both sides, it will still keep the idea of having somewhere to buy something, but make it a little bit more themed, which we love. So I'm just going to play with the rotation and see which way I actually think it works best. Because part of me think it kind of like works right up against the fence. Maybe just a tile forward or something like that. Because it does feel like it's like not too wide for the space. But I'm also thinking, do I just have it like angled like the concession cart was as well? So we could just do like maybe kind of like that. So it's not too close to the confectionery store, because that is a pretty big item. What do we go with? Having it right up against the fence. I think if we do that, we probably need something in this area just to break it up a little bit. Maybe some seating or something along those lines. Or maybe I bring this kind of like... maybe this? So, or I could push it right up against this fence. So we do have a way to walk past it on that side as well. But I've still got the same issue of having this kind of like too open. So I think I'm probably going to go with... I say probably because I'm definitely undecided. That doesn't feel right either, you know? It doesn't feel right just kind of like floating in the middle. So I need to sit with that. I do want to place that in this area, but I just need to sit with it for a second. Though I feel like that actually kind of works. But I'll revisit. When I look at this like river or stream that we have running down the center, I think that maybe the lily pads feel the same way as the balloons, a little bit jovial. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those as well. And we're probably just going to replace it with maybe some of the plain lily pads, because they're a little bit darker. So I think it's worth swapping them out for something else. Or we might even use some of the reeds, possibly. So we do have a pretty clear river or stream going through just there, because it is certainly not a river. And I was wondering maybe the lily pads. So I am having an issue where I can't place them on the water. They just get stuck wherever I go. So maybe some cattails could work instead, because they do have the orange on them. I know that we do have some extra cattails as well that have some reeds around them. So I think we just go ahead and we mix and match the both of those just all the way down. I don't think we need to overdo it. Just a couple is fine on each side. Maybe we place some of those just a little bit more by there, and have some of the tall ones kind of there, and another short one just in the middle. And then we can just do exactly the same thing on this side. Maybe bring it a little bit back towards the plaza. Grab the tall ones, pop those in, and then grab the small ones, if I can grab them. Pop those at the end, just like that. that at least ties the color palette in and makes it all feel a little bit more cohesive without that pink really standing out. So I think from this angle, it's already looking really good. I say already as if we're not 30, 40 minutes into this video. I have placed this potion hut backing onto this fence, and then I've moved it over just once, so it kind of like optically aligns rather than perfectly aligns. And then I was thinking maybe I just bumped that grate down so that it does properly align. And then I was thinking maybe I could get some small tables and chairs. I was thinking maybe the cafe chairs that we had with the cafe that we got right here, this little coffee shop. I thought that could make it feel like a little drinks area. I don't know, maybe just 2 tables and 4 chairs. That could work. I think the tables are somewhere in here as well. And then it just makes it feel like a little bit more of a drinks area. And I could actually maybe even put some potions on the tables, because at Epic Universe, they've got some incredible drinks in the Ministry of Magic section that kind of like are meant to look like potions. So I think that works. The other option that I had for those was this orchard wooden table, but I don't think the color quite matches, even though this sort of cedar doesn't match this witchy potion hut. I think it fits the bill, unless we did this fairy garden table. Now, I know that's a little bit left field, but it does have a spider web on it. So I wonder if I swap that out, kept the chairs, but used that as kind of a table instead. Let's see. Let's just quickly see how that looks. I think I prefer the little cafe one because it feels a little bit more public than that table does. So I'm going to stick with that for the time being. I'm trying to lean a little bit more into the kind of like woody and witchy Halloween rather than more of this gray version that we did up in the Forgotten Lands. So like the mausoleum, the frightful fountain, the archway, those feel a little bit spookier than the spooky that I'm going for. This is like Mickey's Not So Scary spooky, lots of oranges. So that's why I want to go for those wood kind of like textures, those warm, rich colors. So I was also thinking maybe when I was just looking through this list, I've got the Watchful Spell book just here, and I thought maybe that could be like the menu for this place. That could be cute. That could be like the drinks menu that you look before you go in to order. That's kind of adorable. And a lot of places do that. So I think that fits the bill, and I think that looks... And then it looks pretty good. It looks like a proper like little drink station. So I'm happy with how that looks. I'm not really going to touch my stalls because I like where they are and I like how they look. I am thinking maybe we just temporarily get rid of these balloons, possibly swapping them out for something else. I'm not sure. We've got the Bewitched Garden tools. They could look pretty cute, just like a little bit of color, a little bit of texture again on that section. So I'm just going to give everything a single tile breathing room by there. But is there point? No. Does it look kind of cute? Yes. And then we'll do everything the same on the other side. But I think we could do with adding just a couple of little candles down, like atrium candles from Storybook Vale just add to the vibe. These candles everywhere just give, not spooky, but they give kind of like ambience. So I'm gonna pop those down in a bunch of different places, just really kind of like get the people going, as they say. And I think maybe we just drop a couple in this central section as well, because I didn't place any down in here previously. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put a bunch of these down in all different places. Maybe we could have some by the sides of the bench, just for a little bit of a glow, a little bit of a color. I might even put like some of the the smaller melted candles you have to manually turn on, whereas I believe that the atrium candles are on all of the time. So I could put those either side of the Headless Horseman, because maybe this area does need just a little something to give it a bit of a boost. I don't kind of want to put one right in front of it, though. Maybe I should revisit... Maybe I should revisit this section with some extra pumpkins, some extra jack-o'-lanterns. That pumpkin Mickey one is super, super wide. Just to fill in that space a little bit. And of course, I didn't place, apart from over the benches, any of these atrium candles down now. Not the atrium candles, the floating candles down. I would like to get them kind of like in the corners, but we do have those actual lights there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate them, and then I'm going to place them each kind of like quadrant. So it encapsulates that like that. Oh, doesn't that look great? That does look great. And then maybe we could have one kind of floating over the entrance where that little Remy's entry section is. And I think for floating candles in this middle bit, that works really nicely. But now I look at it, maybe there's too many over our little stream. But can you ever have too many floating candles? I could get rid of every other one. Maybe if we think that it's a little bit too much. I don't think that would do any harm. Maybe that would make it look a little bit neater. Yeah, I think that does. And then what I didn't do, which I just remembered, is I didn't go in and rotate them. So I'm just going to do that just to mix them up a little bit because you know me, I don't love the repetitious pattern of them, of anything really. So here we go. I think that looks good. Perfect. We are getting there. I don't think there's too much more to add. If I take a look in here again, we do have a couple of small things that I like. Maybe some of the trick-or-treaters bounties could work quite well. Just dotted about. I might get confused because I believe that the Halloween event is on right now. So I don't want to have to think that I've got to pick them all up. But we could just dot these out a little bit, maybe with some pumpkins. That just kind of like adds to the vibe. Something kind of like that. And then I can just go through and do that in a bunch of different places. So we'll do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and say that actually on this side, I think we're done. Not too many changes, not as many as the middle, apart from this Fortune Teller 10, but otherwise it's just little touches that you can add in to make it feel a little bit more seasonal. So I think, unless the only thing that's kind of catching my eye is whether I should replace all of these bushes with orange shrubs. Now, I don't know if that's going to be possible because the footprint of these is pretty big. I wonder if we swap them for these little orange ones instead. That could possibly work, but I might just end up going back to the yeah, I don't think they're close enough. I was toying with it, but I don't think they're close enough physically to make it look very good. So I'm gonna leave the flower bushes. Maybe I just swap this little one out for an orange one instead. I think there's a slightly smaller orange one just over here, just to tie in that color scheme just a little tiny bit more. Unless, wait, why didn't I think about that? Why don't I swap it for purple? Does the purple from the Forgotten Lands bush actually match? It does. So maybe I should do purple, because then it matches the Fortune Teller's tent, right? Which is kind of what we wanted. We could always alternate them. Actually, alternating them looks really cute. Look at that. Okay. Okay, that does look good. Doesn't that look good? Now I think we're done. I think that pretty much finishes us off for this side. All right, so I've gone ahead and duplicated that on the other side. So we've got exactly the same setup on both sides, which is just how I like it. I think from above, it looks pretty good. I am pleased with how this turned out. I did swap a few other little bits, like there were some red trees here, so I swapped those out for orange. But other than that, I think that we're just about done. So I'm going to go to Avatar View and let's take a little tour. All right, so coming up from the Peaceful Meadow, this is a look at our very orange, very autumnal and themed plaza for Halloween. I love it. I think it looks great. I love all of the pumpkins everywhere. I love that the gigantic kind of like park archway lets you just see through to the Dream Castle, and you can see the floating candles just up in the sky of the Dream Castle as well. I think that's really fun. I love this pumpkin Mickey topiary. I do wish that it was like twice the size, but I'm happy with how it fits within this space. We've got the little seating areas to the left and to the right with the little scarecrow. We've got that new headless horseman statue, which I think looks really cool in this space as well. I swapped out some of these little bushes just over here for the purple ones to tie in a little bit more of that purple theme that we got going throughout this build with the fortune teller's tent and this bench. But if we come to the left, we do have that batty tree, which I've not assigned any companions to yet, but I think maybe a raven or two could be pretty fun for that. And then of course we've got those more gigantic pumpkins from that park's entry. Coming under here through Remy's little kind of archway, we've got that fortune teller tent on the left-hand side with that Madame Leota table, which I think is very inviting and fits the bill perfectly. So I'm really glad that we decided to put that down there. We've got Eric in the way, who can't wait to get back out on the water. But down these side little bits where I have my stalls, we just have a couple of little Halloween items, nothing too intense, just enough to give it a little bit of theming. And then we do have those witchy garden tools as well, which I think have a really nice animation to them. And of course, we've got those alternating colored shrubs, which I think just tie in to the color scheme that we ended up going with, which was having the greens, but bringing in those purples and oranges as well. This little witchy stall with the menu, which is actually a witch spell book. I think this is pretty much a drinks or concession stand. I think it gives that now that we have the seating outside of it. So I think that's a fun little addition instead of that green concession stand that we had. And everything else on this side is pretty much the same, other than those little foliage elements we put in this greenery section. I love having that little greenery section just to break things up a little bit, because otherwise a lot of brick pathing does feel very monotone, but I think it works really well. I think the colors look great. And looking down our waterway, we do have those new orange reeds, and we've got those floating candles just above. And the main point of all of this was to tie in with this castle, which I think we've achieved. And I think just putting down some floating candles would have achieved that as well. But on the whole, I think with the color scheme, with the lights, we did bring in the purples, which I think is an important point. We do have the oranges from the pumpkins, but I think that purple was really integral to tie this all together, because I do love a color story. Coming on over to the left-hand side, and of course, it's exactly the same over here, just those autumnal colors, those little Halloween touches, and then we've got the same witchy potion stand and the same fortune teller's tent with the repeating bushes and my stalls on this side as well. So I think it looks great. I'm going to switch over to nighttime so we can take a look at how it looks at night. I actually feel like dusk is the best time to get the full impact of this space, because everything kind of turns on and starts glowing, and it has that little orange glow as well, which I think just adds to the ambience. So everything's lit up. We've got the candles everywhere. All of the lights are turned on. The pumpkins are lit up. It's just a vibe. This is very much a little slice of me. Same thing on both sides. I won't give you a full tour again, but that fortune teller is very inviting. There's a lot of brightness coming from there. Madame Leota follows you around as she looks at the camera at the same time with a little glow. Ratatouille's sign lights up. We've got all of the floating candles up in the air. And then just off there in the background, we do have that castle skin, which was the point of the whole video and ties everything together. All right, gang, that is it for this video. I do hope that you enjoyed watching it. I certainly enjoyed making it. As I said at the top, decorating for the seasons is a part of the thing that I love the most in Disney Dreamlight Valley. I do hope that there were a couple of tips and tricks in there, maybe something you picked up, whether it was color stories, whether it was items that you didn't think to use. any of those things. If you did find something useful, feel free to give the video a like. Leave me a comment down below what you think of this build, what you think of this redecoration, and if you haven't subscribed already, feel free to do so to become part of our little corner of the internet. This was a pretty long decorating video again today, so I'm going to leave it there for today. I will stop yapping, and with all of that being said, I will catch you in the next one, and I will, of course, see you in the valley.